see here.
Yep.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Judge Sullivan.
Step on up. Step on.
May it please the court.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, standing before you is Kendall Mims. This is a bond hearing, the charges that she is charged with. She is charged with accessory after the fact to murder, misprision of a felony, obstruction of justice. For the record, those warrant numbers are 2024 A04 1010 1933 through 1935. Your Honor, this is related to the bond hearing that we had on Monday with Mr. Bluen and his client, Ms. Tippett. Ms. Mims is a co-defendant. Like Ms. Tippett, Ms. Mims does not have a record, so I didn't want to let the court know that. I can give you kind of a brief synopsis of the facts if you would like them for the record.
Let's do it. Let's do a brief synopsis
Okay.
for the record.
Judge, this is a case...
Focusing in on her involvement,
Yes, sir, absolutely.
alleged involvement.
Correct. Your Honor, this occurred back in August of 2024. Law enforcement got a call, I believe, on September the 10th in reference to the victim in this case, Ms. Jessica Barnes, missing. Pendleton Police Department started doing an investigation for missing persons. They ultimately asked SLED to become involved about a week later on September the 17th. SLED became involved and started questioning several individuals. Ms. Mims lived with her grandfather in the city of Pendleton on her grandfather's property. They lived in a pool house. Ms. Mims lived out there. Ms. Tippett had just recently moved in about a week and a half before that. And Mr. Barnes also lived out there as well. The grandfather lived in the main house. Ms. Mims did have a minor child by Mr. Brandon Barnes, and the three of those women as well as the child lived out there in this pool house. What really kind of broke this case open, Your Honor, is Ms. Mims, her grandfather, became, I guess, concerned about her safety, and then he was also concerned about these two particular vehicles that Ms. Mims as well as Mr. Barnes drove. He had a financial interest in both vehicles, so he ended up putting a GPS tracking device on both of those vehicles, and he ended up turning that information, that login information, to law enforcement. And as they were going back and looking at where these vehicles were traveling to, they determined that the vehicle in question, one of the vehicles in question, had gone out to this address on Twin Lakes Road in Pickens County, just right over the county line, but in Pickens County. On numerous occasions between August the 2nd and August the 4th, they ended up going out to that location, SLED, law enforcement. They got a coroner from Pickens County as well as an anthropologist from Clemson. They went out there and discovered some human remains. They had a dog that helped alert that. That was ultimately sent off for testing, and it was determined that human remains from Ms. Barnes was located at that location. Law enforcement ended up putting a trail camera out there, and they did see the three co-defendants go out to that location at some point after the fact. When they had actually gotten back, they actually had gotten in one of the vehicles and took off kind of across the country, did about a week-long excursion or so out west, and then ultimately came back. And when they came back, they actually captured them on the trail camera back out there at the location where Ms. Barnes' body was burned, and they did find the human remains out there. Law enforcement ultimately, while they took some time to confirm that was human remains, they ultimately brought all three of these co-defendants in for questioning at the Clemson Police Department on October the 1st. They separated all these individuals and ultimately questioned them. As far as Ms. Mims, Ms. Mims did give a statement, Your Honor, and I would say that she was, in comparison to the other two co-defendants, she was much more forthcoming with law enforcement. She didn't necessarily beat around the bush and lie. She apologized and explained that she had been at work that day. When she got back home from work, she did see Ms. Barnes' body in a tote that she had already been placed in the tote. She did admit to helping dispose of the body, but she did indicate to law enforcement that she was not there when it happened. She did explain to law enforcement a lot of background information, and I'm sure Ms. Weiss will get into some of that, related to how Mr. Barnes treated her because they did have a child in common. So that there was some information about how not only he treated Ms. Mims, but Ms. Barnes and Ms. Tippett as well. She gave that background information. She did, I guess, lie on kind of two different occasions, and she was confronted with that. She denied going to the Lowe's and kind of retrieving additional material to help dispose of the body on August 6th, and they confronted her with that, with her being on video. And she ultimately did admit that she was there when that occurred. And she also denied going back out there to the scene where Ms. Barnes' body was burned, and obviously there was evidence showing that she was there as well. So those are the kind of the two parts that she wasn't forthright with to law enforcement, but again, comparing her statement to the other two co-defendants, she cooperative and not necessarily trying to hide information from law enforcement. Again, she, by all accounts, she was not present when this Barnes was killed.
What's the position of the victim's family?
Judge, we'll leave this at your discretion. I have been provided a couple of different letters as well as the same information that was sent to you, I believe, yesterday afternoon. I think that the victim's family is sympathetic to the fact that Ms. Mims does have a small child. And I think that they are also understanding that Ms. Mims was not present when the murder occurred. And I think that's probably a factor into the letters, into the information that they have provided to the court. But as far as the state is concerned, we are concerned with flight risk. I'm not sure what kind of resources she has. She did take an excursion out west. She was with her co-defendants. So we're not sure as to the resources that she would have. I do know she has family contacts outside of the state. But at the end of the day, Judge, we would certainly leave it to your discretion.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, I have some hard copies of most of the information I sent you earlier.
All right.
I think you have most of that.
I think I do as well. I actually have the forensic evaluation on my laptop now, and I had an opportunity to review that. Thank you for sending it to me. You'll see that. All right, yes, I'm ready to the behalf.
Okay.
And then I've been able to review them.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court.
Yes, ma'am.
Catherine Wise for Ms. Kendall Mims. Your Honor, Ms. Kendall Mims is 21 years old. She, as you've already heard from Solicitor Black, she does not have a criminal history. She was born into a very loving home. Her father is a retired minister. Her mother is a school nurse. She is what they call a surviving triplet. I'd never heard that term before. She had to explain it to me. She and her twin brother are all that is left and survived. Her brother is a firefighter as well as an EMT. Her mother, her father, and her brother live in North Carolina in Davidson County. Now, her grandfather lives in Pendleton, and her grandfather, as you've heard, provided a lot of information to the Pendleton Chief of Police, who is here today. And Judge, I do not dispute that he may or may not have had a financial interest in Mr. Barnes' car, but that was not the reason why he placed a GPS tracker on Ms. Mims. She met Mr. Barnes online when she was 19 years old. She had gone to college. She wanted to make prosthetics for veterans. She's very, very intelligent. She got on, I think, Tinder, and Mr. Barnes came up as a possible match. At that point in time, as so often happens, he made her his world. I love you, you're beautiful, nobody makes me feel the way you do, you understand me, I can't live without you, and he swept her off her feet. She did not have a lot of dating experience prior to Mr. Barnes. She'd grown up in a very sheltered environment. She was very naive. And she didn't see the signs that were there showing her that Mr. Barnes is a sociopath and capable of terrible and awful things. So she left college and moved with him to Georgia. As her parents describe it, it's like he kidnapped her in the middle of the night. He was displaying some very disturbing signs right before then. He required her to have her phone on all the time, FaceTiming even at night when she was asleep. Her mother found this when she went upstairs to tell her daughter good night, and she was alerted to Mr. Barnes' voice saying that she was already asleep, and that he was there, FaceTime, watching her. Her mother, being concerned as she was based on this behavior, confronted her daughter about it and was like, this isn't normal. Mr. Barnes also lived with another person that goes by the name of Candy. She eventually kicked Mr. Barnes out of her home because he was violent. Apparently he had killed some animals there, he'd slashed tires, and when that happened, he took Kendall to Georgia. He lived in a dilapidated camper outside of his dad's property. His camper did not have a full roof. I mean, a lot of it was gone. I think there was a tarp over it. It didn't have working plumbing. They didn't have electricity. During this time, she started noticing that there were some really worrying things about Brandon. He started pushing her down, physically injuring her. She would sit there and watch as he would get enjoyment out of torturing animals. When her family found out about the living situations where she was, her grandfather said, "You please come live in the pool house. You've got to have running water." Now, during this time, not only had he love bombed her and made her feel like she was the only person in the entire world, but he'd started to scare her. He had taken control over her finances. She no longer, well, she had access to her finances, but he was using them too. He began physically abusing her. He began all the hallmarks of coercive control, where he controlled everything she did, who she spoke to. She wasn't allowed to communicate with her family. They were so worried about her that they put out an APB because her mother owned the vehicle. They found her in Georgia because they involved law enforcement at a very early stage in this awful tragedy. Like I said, Mr. Heron offered to let them come move into the pool house. They did. Once they got there, shortly thereafter, Kendall got pregnant. And it was like the noose around her neck. She felt trapped, like she couldn't leave, like she had to stay there with him and raise their child. Now, shortly, right after she got pregnant, he met Miss Jessica Barnes, probably online. He took Kendall and another young woman to the Twin Lakes that Solicitor Black was speaking about earlier, and they spent the 4th of July there. They went to Miss Barnes' home and had dinner there. He told Jessica that Kendall was his sister. Now, Kendall never perpetuated that lie. She told Jessica, "I am not his sister. I am his girlfriend. He lives with me." About 2 or 3 days later, Mr. Barnes brings Jessica to the home to move in. He just tells Kendall that she's got to deal with it. She's pregnant. She doesn't know what to do. And during this time, he begins threatening her grandfather. He is 81 years old. He's present in the courtroom today. And her grandfather intervened when Mr. Barnes heard a very disturbing argument between the two of them. He heard Mr. Barnes yelling and screaming at her, and he went over to him and said, "You don't speak to my granddaughter that way." At which point in time, Mr. Barnes basically told him, "You're lucky to be alive." You know, this continued. She wasn't allowed to have any contact with her family. She couldn't even go visit them. He monitored all of her phones, all of her social media. She had to delete it. He wouldn't let her go back to school. He took her to work, and then he picked her up, and then he would take her to his job and make her sit there so that he could keep an eye on her. Whenever she was out of his sight, she had to have her phone on and earbuds available so that he could hear everything that was going on while she was away from him. Even when Jessica moved in, she was never allowed to be alone. She was not allowed to go to her grandfather's house. She was not allowed at all to see her parents. He began sexually abusing her, forcing her to do things that not only did she not want to do, but she begged him to stop. He began drugging her. He began giving her copious amounts of alcohol, and when she wouldn't take it, he would open her mouth and make her swallow it, and by putting his hand over her mouth. He was drugging her food. She didn't realize that at first. And he would, all the while doing this, he would send pictures to her mother and, of her in her drugged state. Now, Kendall, unfortunately, saw a lot of violence against Jessica. But Mr. Barnes drove a wedge between her and Jessica, making both of them feel as if they had to compete for his love and affection, and if he started being too nice to one of them, Judge, it was just a psychological horror movie as to what happened to this young lady and to Miss Jessica Barnes. Judge, as you know, both were pregnant. Miss Mims gave birth to her child. And shortly thereafter, Jessica had a stillborn birth. Well, when that occurred, Mr. Barnes said, "You have to go to work, you have to support us." She got 2 jobs, 4 weeks postpartum. He wouldn't even let her breastfeed her own child. He wanted Jessica to breastfeed her child. I mean, this psychological nightmare that she is trapped in, she can't get away from. And as soon as the baby was born, he began strangling her, forcing drugs and more alcohol into her system. She lived in a nightmare. All she was trying to do was survive. And I know that Solicitor Black referenced the trip across country. Judge, Mr. Barnes said, "I'm taking the child." She was scared to death. Something was going to happen to the kid, or that she was never going to see her again. So she felt like she had to go. Whenever she would mention that she was unhappy, or that she wanted to leave, or that she didn't want to be there anymore, he told her repeatedly, "You will never see your daughter again," leaving her to guess as to whether that meant he was going to take their daughter and leave, or if he was going to kill her, or if he was going to kill their daughter. Miss Mims is standing in front of you today, Your Honor, asking you to give her a chance to be with her daughter the way a mother should be. Her family is not going to help her flee the country or the state or anything. Mr. Herron was elemental in helping the state find Jessica's remains and put an end to this case. He is not going to allow her to leave the state, to leave his house. And we would beg you to give her the opportunity to be the mother that she has never been allowed to be. And we would beg you for the opportunity for her to get out so that she can start seeking treatment, because she has lived through hell. Judge, as I've already brought to your attention, Chief Crosby has written a letter in support of Ms. Mims as well as Ms. Varvara. And I think that they understand the complexities of this case and that they get the fact that she was in a dire situation and did not know what to do. I do not believe that Ms. Mims is a flight risk. She will live with her grandfather. She just wants the opportunity to seek help, get well, and be a mother to her child. Her family is here. Her mother, her father, as well as her grandfather, as well as several members of her church family are all here today in support of her. And if you would like to hear from them, they are welcome to stand up and tell you that they are not going to help her escape the penalties of this action.
And I've had an opportunity to review the letters. When it comes to granting a bond and allowing someone to remain out in the community pending a charge, such as this or any charge, the primary consideration is whether or not she's a danger to the community and whether or not she's a flight risk. And I don't see either one of those present with Ms. Mims. So I'm going to grant her request for bonds, and now let's talk about what's reasonable. You're telling us she'll live with her grandfather?
Yes, ma'am. And Your Honor, we consent to GPS and
GPS monitoring, strict house arrest, no contact with co-defendants.
yes,
At
ma'am.
all, zero contact.
I don't think she wants to do that.
I just want to reiterate that I'm taking a chance on her, and her family's here to support her. She wasn't present when this occurred. She's been cooperative. She's got the support. One jail call, and her bond's revoked. It's not even a motion. It's a warrant for her arrest. If Mr. Barnes, or if I don't grant Ms. Tippett's request for bond, which I have in her advisement, one jail call to a co-defendant, there's not even a question about it. Warrant for arrest, she's picked up, and she can come sit pending a judge reviewing. All right, so we're just going to be very strict about that. Let me look to the solicitor. What do you believe is reasonable under the circumstances, since you know I'm going to grant her request for bond?
Judge, we'll leave it at your discretion. I mean, she's not charged with she's not charged with murder, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you if she had anything to do with the murder because the evidence points that she was at work that day. So we'll leave it at the court's discretion. In terms of the residency requirement, is she going to be staying with her grandfather? I guess we would like some clarification about where she's going to be living.
She'll be living with her grandfather in Pendleton at the same address.
I think we're not going to argue against that. That's within the circuit and it's close by, and Chief Crosby can be around to kind of keep an eye on everything.
That's why I was looking to the grandfather as opposed to, let's say, you said Davidson, North Carolina is what
Yes,
her
ma'am.
family is. I'd rather prefer to hear local so that he's right here.
Judge, I don't think a PR bond is appropriate, but other than that, we'll leave the value at your discretion.
All right, so now let's talk about that.
Thank you, Your Honor. Her mom and dad are, like I said, retired pastor and a school nurse. Judge, her father is now teaching school. They do not have a lot of money.
I understand, but under the circumstances of the PR bond, it's not.
No, oh, no.
So
No, I'm-
tell me what the family is able to do, because that then, puts a little more at risk for Ms. Mims if she decides that she's not going to follow her bond conditions. And I know I've got her on the monitor, which is going to cost as well.
Yes, ma'am. We would ask for $40,000.
I think more than 40 is probably appropriate. Less than 100, but more than 40.
Well, Ms. Wise had a number in my mind, so she's going to have to talk with her family and see what they're able to do. $75,000,
Okay.
okay?
Thank you, Judge.
That's more than reasonable under the
Yes, ma'am.
circumstances. So let's, any other conditions that we need to place?
I think you mentioned no contact with co-defendants. We're also asking for no contact with the victim or the victim's family, extended family.
That's granted. That would be a standard condition, and she's hesitating. Tell me why you're hesitating.
Well, Judge, interestingly enough, Ms. Varvara has met the minor child, and I don't want to put restrictions on what Ms. Varvara wants to do
Where is the minor child now?
with her grandfather.
With her grandfather.
Would it be,
Is she visiting with the minor child?
she has, is
Is she
it,
helping the grandfather with the minor child?
no, not that I am aware of. If it's okay with the court and with Solicitor Black, if she wants to initiate contact and visit, would it be okay for her to do that if there were supervision there? I mean, I don't exactly know how to frame it.
Tell me how she feels about this, and ordinarily, I mean,
I haven't had an opportunity to discuss this matter with the victim, and I believe Chief Crosby and my victim advocate, this is the first we're learning about all this, so we'd have to do a little bit of digging, Your Honor.
all right, well, let's do this. Why don't you all speak with her, and you know if they ask me for no contact, I said it's no contact.
That's fine, Judge. I just don't want to,
Standard condition.
I don't want to limit her if that brings her comfort.
I don't know if it's a limitation, if it's reasonable, but you want to ask her since we're talking about it?
Judge, the victim is requesting the no contact. I think she just saw the child on one occasion when she went to go pick up her daughter's belongings at Ms. Mims' grandfather's house.
That's perfectly reasonable,
It's
Your
going to
Honor.
be a no contact, and then if she changes her mind, she can always talk to Solicitor Black, and then we can revisit.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Great.
All right.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Yeah, you gotta do that.